Hello everyone, and welcome to this cosmic snowy owl painting process. Just for the record, the reference photo that you saw right at the beginning of the video was taken by my fiance, Ronald Doucette, who takes amazing photos, and we have been gathering a lot of photos of owls this winter, which has been really cool. So I decided that I wanted to use one of these snowy owl photos that he took, and I wanted to make it into a cosmic snowy owl painting. So this is the process that I was actually trying to figure out first with acrylics, and then after I did this part of it, I decided that I really just wanted to move on to oils. However, I continued to work on this process trying to create kind of this nebulous background with acrylics, but it really wasn't working out for me all that well. I was working with golden open acrylics so that I would have a little bit more working time, but no matter what, it just wasn't doing what I wanted it to do, so I was just kind of having a little bit of fun with it before I went on to oil paint. I was pretty anxious to get to painting the snowy owl so that I could figure out the color scheme of the owl itself. I wanted it to reflect more of a cosmic background as opposed to putting in most of the earthy tones that the feathers were reflecting in the original reference photo. So I went in and decided that I was going to work with a lot of different blues, purples, maybe even some pink and some turquoise, and get those colors into the owl and work on from there to figure out how I wanted the background to look. I did want the owl to stand out against the background, and right now, as you can see, the background is pretty foggy, faded. It's not really saturated or anything like that, so the main thing was to get the owl in, and then I could work on resaturating the background. I chose to paint this owl on a pretty large canvas. This is a 24 by 36 inch canvas because I wanted to accommodate the wingspan of the owl, but I also wanted it to be big enough that I could really put in a lot of detail and have it stand out against the cosmic surroundings. The wings really were kind of an intense part of this whole entire process because there were so many little feathers and so much detail that had to be put in, but I also wanted them to stand out, and so I spent quite a bit of time on the wings and really putting in a lot of the detail in the first layer of oil paint. Not having a definitive plan when you go into a painting of how you're going to accomplish a certain effect can be really challenging, so you're figuring things out as you go. And what I was figuring out was how many layers I wanted to actually put on this painting. So I usually have to go a lot lighter with the oil paint before I can glaze in darker colors and really amp up all of those colors. So I did some glazing and then started adding some titanium white and blending out these really soft clouds. I wanted to have a really saturated background, but you have to go light before you start adding glazes, which will darken things quite a bit. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just using a blending brush and a fan brush in order to create a lot of these cloud formations in the background. Once I was satisfied with some of these billowing, nebulous clouds in the background, I went on to painting the other wing the same way that I did with the first wing and really getting a lot of those details in, but I also wanted it to be a lot brighter because I intended to create more saturation with the colors when I go on to the glazing. Once I had the wing in, I glazed with some dioxazine purple and then started adding some billowing clouds continuing underneath the owl. So you'll notice that after a week of drying, the owl doesn't really stand out from the background. So this is where glazes really come into play and darkening a lot of the background. But because I have all of this light underneath, we create some fading clouds, and that is such a beautiful thing. So I started adding some Prussian blue, dioxazine purple, and really fading a lot of these clouds out into the background, which was going to make the owl pop forward quite a bit more. As I continued to build the background, I wanted to create some points of light and add some more interest where you can kind of see these tendrils and these swirling gases coming out from the clouds and really just making it into something very cosmic and sort of magical. There was definitely a lot of playing back and forth between the colors of the owl and the colors of the background. I didn't want the owl to have all of the pinks and the purples in it, but I wanted it to have some of the blue colors, and I still wanted it to stand out from the background quite a bit. So I went back and forth between the background and the owl, figuring out where I wanted to have some of the more pinkish colors and the purples, and then back into the owl where I pretty much focused more on turquoise and phthalo blue. There really was a tremendous amount of back and forth with this painting where I would work on the background, then work on the owl, and I needed to deepen a lot of the shadows on the underbelly of the owl. So I went in with my glazes, and then I also started to brighten some parts of the owl's head so that it would stand out more from the dark background behind it, although there are parts of the snowy owl that have these darker patches, but I still wanted the head to stand out, and so there was a lot of this back and forth between glazes and then the brightening. I also did have to wait for all of that to dry before I could add the brightest highlights, so I did have another day of painting in the snowy owl after this, but this was the main part of getting the owl's head to really stand out and add more dimension. Once I had that done, I went into glazing around the rest of the painting and really darkening some of those areas so that I could figure out how light I wanted the background to be against the underbelly of the owl and how dark I actually wanted the underbelly of the owl to be. So now you see that transformation where the underbelly actually stands out from the background quite a bit. So we are now getting to the end of this process, and I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and let me know in the comments what you think. All right, I love you guys, and I will see you next time. Bye.